Hello and welcome to the Young China podcast. We are a half Chinese Brit and a Siberian Russian living in China. We use our unique perspectives to demystify and translate Chinese culture and lifestyle. My name is Lucien.
My name is Artem. We are entrepreneurs who made it in China, and now we are sharing our experience with you. And we just got back from north of China.
It was so cold. And that's all I can say. All right. It was so freezing cold. I know exactly what you want to say. Oh, it wasn't cold. It was
wait. Okay, we went to Shanxi province with 1A. Don't mess it with the Shaanxi. So Shanxi province, Datong city, which before was known as a coal capital of China. Dirty, really black
really industrial,
city, yeah.
Really like northern, that kind of thing, yeah.
And just in 10 years, it became like a very touristic city with amazing air. Yeah, cold, but really clean and clear sky.
Yeah, surprisingly cold. Surprisingly clean. Because I'd been there.
Surprisingly cold because you haven't prepared.
It was freezing. Oh my God. And the thing is, so Artem and I, we went up there to film a short documentary. And obviously, being from Russia, from Siberia, he had to go and play the part. Oh, it's not cold at all. This is like warm for me. This is like, oh, it feels so nice to have this.
It was like -10 average. In the mountains, it was -15 and a bit snowy. So average temperature in my hometown in winter time, it's like 20-30 minus.
Yeah, but man, it doesn't matter about what you had in your childhood. Like your body doesn't get used to something and then have like an immunity for 10 years.
It's not
right?
immunity.
You spent like 6 years in Guangdong and then a year in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Where it's always hot.
But it is my blood and my gene. I don't know.
Man.
I can handle it. I mean, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean I just like take out all clothes and will be like, swimming in this snow. I don't know. No, but yeah, it was okay. But anyway, we went there and you saw for the first time the real snow. And the thing is, our cameraman, who is Chinese, and in Britain you don't have real snowy weather?
Not really. So I live in London. So it's only really in the North, Scotland, the Highlands where you get snow.
So you've never been there?
Not in the winter, no.
Wait.
It's too cold.
But you said you had ski in Switzerland.
Yeah, we would ski in Switzerland.
So there is snow.
Yeah, but a lot of the time it's in Easter, right? So it's actually sunny, so you can actually ski in a T-shirt.
So it means you never experienced snow and cold, real cold.
Yeah, I've seen snow, but I've never had like cold that's so bitter.
So real winter, okay. You experienced real winter.
Yeah, real winter.
Well, our cameraman, who is from Fujian province, he's 25 years old and first time in his life he saw real snow, and he was happy as a kid, he was like trying to eat it and like to get into the snow and just play with the snow. And he not only experienced winter for the first time, but also snow. And it's interesting. So like how China, I mean, like Russia is big, but it's like big from east to west, while China is big from south to the north. That's why like half of Chinese people haven't seen snow for their life,
Yeah, and that really brings us into our topic today of how big is China really? I think you can tell from Artem's story just now about the cameraman, it's massive. I mean, how many people have you met that have never even seen the sea or seen snow? Some people I know have never even been to their own capital city, Beijing.
Yeah, that's me. I mean, like, it happens in a big country. It may be very strange for you, like as European from a tiny island.
Tiny island, right?
But I've been to Moscow first time when I was 23.
Oh.
So I've been to Beijing earlier. It was my first capital, earlier than my own capital, because it's the same from Siberia. Flight to Moscow 4 hours, and like flight to Beijing is also like about 4 hours. And I saw snow first time. I saw the sea the first time in China, in Dalian. Dalian city.
How old were you?
20. But I don't remember I was that happy. Okay, this is a C.
Well,
Nice.
that's because you're Russian and you're never really very happy anyway. Like your default mode is just like
grumpy Siberian.
grumpy Siberian.
Wow,
Exactly.
snow. Wow,
Oh, wow,
mountains.
great.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really curious about this topic. And let's actually start from when we were younger. So China's become a lot smaller because the transport has gotten so good. So there's bullet trains and airplanes all over the place. But I know that you used to travel here when you were a lot younger, right? And
Yeah.
I also used to with my family, and then later when I came backpacking as a teenager. You must have some of those green trains, the old green train stories, right? 12 hours, 24 hours, even 36 hours, just like going from like one side of the country to the other.
But I used to it in Russia. We still have this great.
really?
Most of the territory of Russia still use this kind of old green trains. You know, we have only one high-speed train from Moscow to St. Petersburg. Other, like, let's say, like my hometown is a small city, Bisk, near Altai Mountains. If you go to Novosibirsk, which is a big municipality in Siberia, it's actually just 400 kilometers. You need to go there the whole night. You know, like about 14 hours.
Wow.
Because it stop every time, and then in the big city stop like for 1 hour, and then you need really, you know, the 400 kilometers you're going for 14 hours. While here you can go, I don't know, like you can be in Kunming in 9-10 hours, I think, from Shanghai, you know. So it's, I mean, like for me as Russian is nothing special in this topic and nothing special in the big country. The special thing is like how developed China now, and like when you use high-speed railways, you don't feel this distance. That's the thing. You know?
Yeah, I think you're completely right. It's about not feeling that distance. You can do Beijing, Shanghai in just under 5 hours.
Yeah.
It's like 1,000 kilometers, man.
Yeah. And
It's
just like,
like it's such a huge distance, but it feels very short.
yeah, could you imagine like back to like 100 years ago, or even like earlier, how people travel like from Beijing to Shanghai? It's a long journey. You know?
Yeah, it's like weeks, right?
I don't know how many kilometers you can ride by horse for one day. I can do on my bicycle 120, so probably about like 120 or something. So okay, 1 week.
Yeah, but we've got roads now, remember? Good roads.
Yeah.
So back then it would definitely be at least a week.
And no any like hooligans, like bad
yeah,
guys on the road.
bandits and
Yeah,
stuff.
bandits, yeah. Okay, let's start with some theory, because actually I realized as China studies guy that many people who live here for a long time and even studied in Chinese universities, they Chinese could be really good, but they have no any understanding what's going on in terms of like parts of China. So there are 34 such divisions claimed by the People's Republic of China, classified as 23 provinces, 4 municipalities, 5 autonomous regions, and 2 special administrative regions. And here, when someone says like, I know China so well, my first question, could you name me 4 Chinese municipalities, which is like 4 the most important city in China?
Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, Chongqing.
So you know, but most of the people, even like sometimes they name Hong Kong or Guangzhou or Shenzhen something, which is not.
Are we going to do a challenge format today? Is that how the podcast is going to go? You be the taskmaster and you ask me questions. Go on.
Yeah, but how long have you been known these things?
But I really like geography. I've always really loved geography since as a kid. So I go out of my way to understand this stuff.
Because like Tianjin, some people could hear about because a big port back, I mean, in the north of China, and it's close to Beijing. And if you check on the map, these 2 huge municipalities, Beijing and Tianjin, are come together, which is like becoming almost one city, really. It's like 40 minutes by high-speed railway from Tianjin to Beijing. And Chongqing is a city no one knows, and there is like, by some ratings, is the biggest city in the whole world. Over 30 million people, 33 or something in the whole area. No, urban population is still not that high. It's about like 16 million people. By urban population, actually, Shanghai is one of probably the biggest city in the world. Like by urban population, you live in a city area. But Chongqing is kind of a really huge thing, which are known for foreigners at all. Most of foreigners could heard about Chongqing by Chongqing Express, you know, this like the movie by Wong Kar-wai, and called Chongqing because it's kind of a Cantonese and old transcription. Chongqing mansions, Chongqing, and that's all what they know. And maybe Chongqing hot pot. But where is Chongqing? What is that? What is municipality? Do you have something like London is municipality, right?
London is its own administrative region, like a municipality.
In Russia, we only have St. Petersburg and Moscow, like a special things, municipalities. But in China, they have 4. We keep our challenge. So municipality is done. What about special administrative regions?
Well, the SARs are Hong Kong and Macau. They were previously colonies of the UK and Portugal, handed back in 97.
Macau later 2 years, 1990. Then they have around 50 years of this period when they have this special status. Then it will be probably municipalities the same as Tianjin, Chongqing, Beijing, and Shanghai, right?
Do you remember the handover?
No, it was a big thing for Britain, I think.
I remember it so clearly. I remember thinking, how can you have a contract to hand back a country to another country? I remember just thinking, it's not like a car or like a house. Like how can you have all these people, millions of people, and they're like bound under a contract to just get handed back to someone else? I find the concept incredible. I can't believe that it was bound and it's legally binding for so long.
So the power of international law. There was a contract is over, give it back. And so now Hong Kong is a part of China. Himalaya, part of China, as Macau. And there is 5 autonomous regions of China. Could you name whole 5?
So those are the 5: Ningxia, Tibet,
Inner Mongolia, Xinjiang,
and Guangxi.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I just said it. I forgot already. That's terrible.
That person really loves geography. No, but it's a bit complicated because you don't have these things in Britain for sure. And even I don't think America have this. The states quite independent.
But the states have it in some way. So the Native Americans, they have their own land. They have a lot of freedom on that land. So they build casinos and stuff, right? No, because they have their own tax laws. But
it's not like administrative region on the high level. Have you seen Inner Mongolia and Xinjiang? Why it's called autonomous region? Because they have much more freedoms. I mean, in terms of their language, culture, so they can preserve their own cultures. Because usually, why it's called like this? Because it's inhabited. Can I say inhabited in this case?
Yeah.
By ethnic minorities, which is, we again come back to ethnic minorities. There are 55 ethnic minorities, while 90% of people are Hanzu, is the title nation, and other 10%, which is means every there are 150 million people, they're ethnic minorities. They give them more freedoms to decide how they want to live. Well, central government is still have power there for sure. But I mean, we have in Russia the same thing. We have a lot of minorities, ethnic minorities, a lot. So we have we call it republic. For example, my home region, near my home region, there is Altai Republic where live Altai people, which is mostly Mongolians. So China have kind of the same. So when you have that big country, for sure you have a lot of ethnicities, and you need to do something with this, right?
I think in the United States, each state has a lot of power. They really can do almost anything they want. Whereas I think here it's still very centrally driven from Beijing. And the impression I get from the everyday person on the street is that there is no distinction between autonomous region or province. It's just they're all provinces, right?
He has said it's almost the same like Chinese provinces, but its own local government. It has its own local government still, and it has more legislative rights. And actually, China is, from the start of People's China Republic, they kind of proud of this. That the same stuff was in Soviet Union. The different ethnicities live together in a peace, they help each other, and so it's friendship, whatever.
It seems to me that a lot of ethnic minorities tend to stick to where they are or close by.
Yeah, sure, because they have all environment there. That's why it's special autonomous regions, right? Because they are the language in the schools, people talk in their language, they have their own religion, they have own places to worship, and and there are also not only autonomous region, autonomous county inside the province. For example, we went to Lishui, where the part of Lishui city is autonomous county. There is Shezhou autonomous county. So just like for one of Chinese really small ethnic minorities, She, which actually write as S-H-E. It's interesting, Shi. That is She people. And they have their own county. And again, most of them live there in China. It's the same like, in Ziling, they have this Korean, Yanban Korean autonomous county. And there are a lot of North Koreans actually who like went there long time ago. They stay there and they're like, I know I have many friends from there because I studied in Changchun for a while, and there are a lot of Koreans, and they're like the native language is Korean.
Hey, I've actually heard there are some Russians, and I showed you this video of this guy as well. There's some Russians who were like born here, their grandparents were born here, and they've only known Chinese language and Chinese culture their entire life. So it's really funny, like this like white Russian face in like a thick Chinese accent, like just doing Chinese stuff, right? Like eating Chinese food, drinking Chinese beer, like hanging out with their Chinese buddies with like thick Chinese accent. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, Russian ethnic minority is one of 55 which is included by constitution in China. And there are many Russian people in history because like we are on the border. Part of Russian ethnicity lives in Xinjiang, closer to Kazakhstan border, because before it was like Russian Empire close to that region, and part of them in Dubai, like Harbin, and that's near Russian border. And they really they look like Europeans, but they can't speak Russian, and it's interesting. It's kind of
like a mind-blowing kind of effect to see it happen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we just came back from Hubei, which is like the north region, but like middle north. So it incorporates parts of Inner Mongolia, Shanxi, Hebei. And then to the east is Dongbei, right? And that's 3 provinces.
Yeah, but it's interesting how they split China in like traditional regions, They used this before when Communist Party just came. They split China in a huge 5 or 6 regions, right? And now it's not officially used, but Chinese people in like daily life, they still like split China in these regions, really. For example, when we went there, they say we are in Hubei. And when we went to like Dongbei, for example, they say we are in Dongbei. And they don't say in which provinces. They're still saying that like a few provinces is like friendly provinces. So, like then you're like homie.
Yeah.
You can be from different province, but the same region. So like, we like have more mutual things, right? The interesting thing that before, like just like more than 50 years ago, they split China in the big like macro regions, and there was only 6 regions, which is not used now. Like officially. But Chinese people still use it, and if you like from the province, which is part of, let's say, Hubei, when we went there, or Dongbei, you're still like a gemer, you're still like a homie, you're my friend.
Yeah.
So the one is like, okay, Hubei, Dongbei, there are 4 more regions.
The Xibei, which is northwest.
Northwest.
Yeah. Xinan, which is
southwest.
Zhongnan, which is like south central.
Yeah.
And then Dongnan. Is that right?
Huadong. Huadong is China, which is like Shanghai.
Ah, okay.
So there was, let's say, capitals of these regions. Hubei with the capital in Beijing, Dongbei with the capital in Shenyang, Huadong with the capital in Shanghai, Zhongnan with the capital in Wuhan, then Xibei, Xi'an, and Xinan, Chongqing. It's strange that like Guangdong is...
That's really interesting. Guangdong wasn't the capital then of that region, huh? Wow. But Guangdong's been like an economic powerhouse. Certainly in the last 30, 40 years, but maybe not back then. Like that was still 50, 60 years ago. Maybe not back then.
But Wuhan was the big thing actually before,
Wuhan has always been big, but I'm not so sure if it was very prosperous at the time.
Yeah, there was like, it was the name Hankou. And there was like even many like, it was important city.
Yeah, Hankou. Yeah.
And Canton was like, they have their own vibes.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, they're like part of Zhongnan. So it's interesting. Like these things, maybe you think it's not that important, but Chinese people use it in the daily life, right?
I think that just goes to show how big China is, that not only is everything split into provinces, but even those provinces, they have to like clump together with other provinces just to make it clear the differences between these cultures. I think when you talk about the regions, people have this real ideas or maybe even bias or stereotypes about what these regions represent. So I've got friends from Shanghai or the South who think about Dongbei as just being like this completely freezing place, which it is. And I guarantee it's freezing there. But they also say things like, oh, Dongbei people don't really shower. I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, because they only like, they love to go to bathhouses. And so they'll shower like once or twice a week. And then I actually asked my Dongbei friend, I was like, is this true? They're like slandering you. And she was like, yeah, it's cold, so we don't sweat. So we don't really shower that much. We'll like shower or we'll go to a bathhouse like once or twice a week or 3 times a week. And we'll get like this special scrub to like get the skin off. And for them, that's okay. Because like I say, they don't sweat there. Whereas in the South, it's like, God, you have to shower every day. Like sometimes, like living in Shanghai in the summer, I'll shower like 3 times a day. Because I'm just like, every time you even like open the window, you start sweating.
But it's still biased thing, you know, like they do shower. I mean, like it's not like one time in a week or something. It's not like this. It's not like high mountains Tibet, you know, when people really don't shower. No, but it's interesting. For example, Russia, even Russia is that big. I don't think like Moscow people understand real how like Siberia live. But at least they don't have that many bias as people here in China have about their own regions. It's about diversity. Russia is big, but all we speak the same language without that many dialects.
I think you're completely right and what's so interesting is they do have these misconceptions about each other because it's such a big country. Even though it's easy to travel, sometimes people won't even go to other parts of the country or they won't even meet people from other regions. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's why there are a lot of what they eat, how they behave, and all the things is sometimes not really good. You know, like about Dongbei, they sometimes think that they are like barbarians. They don't have anything there, you know, or when they know if I'm from Russia, like let's say Southern Chinese, they say, "Oh, you're from Russia. It's that cold." I said, "Yeah, it's cold. How can you live there?" I say, "Okay, how Dongbei people can live there?" So, is it the same cold? I say, "Yeah, look at Mohe or Harbin, like in the winter, like 35 with minus, it's okay." Oh, really? I never thought about this, you know? So they even never thought like the part of China is also really cold. The same as in Russia.
Actually, let me give a really good illustration of how big China is. So when I fly home back to London from Shanghai, to get out of China takes about 6 hours, right? So it's a 12-hour flight, and within 6 hours, you've just crossed the border out of China and into like Eurasia and then back into Europe. To cross Europe is like 3 hours. That's incredible.
Wow,
like Europe
you're telling this a person who traveling like from Vladivostok to Russia like for 8 hours in a plane, and you're still in the same country, you know. And while in Moscow in the morning, it's like evening already in Vladivostok. So sorry, but that topic is nothing surprising for me. I can what will happen with you if you go to Russia and realize how big is Russia. But not that diverse, really. It's like you still can feel the same vibes everywhere.
Yeah, okay. But like you say, it's because Russia is very northern, right?
Yeah.
Whereas China is different. And so when they talk about these 6 different regions or then, you know, the different provinces, is that each one does have a very unique culture and because they have different climates, they have different foods, etc. So in a way, if you go to Dongbei versus Hainan is right in the south, it's the southern island, you might as well, it feels like you're in a different country, honestly, because in some ways the culture is still very strong in terms of they speak Chinese, thread of tradition that runs throughout all Chinese people. But in everyday habits, because it's it's subject to the environment, things really, really change. Do you know how China is actually divided? There's this line that divides China. And this one's really interesting because it goes back to all the province stuff that we're talking about. So because there are so many provinces, and you know that China has got so many people, do you know where most of the people actually are, though? And where the least people are?
So it's become, you are challenging
Yes,
me.
I'm challenging
it's
you.
so easy, you know.
Right, because
it's
you live here.
eastern and southern part of China. Because of climate, because of sea, just historically, this is the richest regions in China. And actually, this is a big problem because all populations, all production, all economy is concentrated on the east and south China.
So there's actually a line, right? And I'll give you two statistics. So today I'm the statistics master, whereas usually it's Artem. So in 1935, the west of the line had 64% of the area and only 4% of the population. Whereas 4% of the population, right, in the west. And then obviously the east had 36% of the area, but 96% of the population. And this line goes from around Dongbei and it cuts down to just above Sichuan. And then the rest of that area, which is, you know, on the west, 64% had only 4% of people. That's an incredible thing to think about, especially when you look at like these cities like Shanghai. You see these pictures of like bustling, crowded streets, and then in the same country, it's like empty. It's like desert or forest or mountains.
What is the latest statistics?
So the latest statistics are in the west, it's around 57% of the area, but only 6% of the population. And in the east, 43%, but 94% of the population. So it's largely the same. There's some movement or population growth in the west, but it's still mostly within the east and south. And you can see that, I mean, anyone who's been to China, you will feel it immediately because more than likely you'll land in Beijing or Shanghai or Guangdong and you'll just see masses and masses of people. But once you head out to west, it feels noticeably more empty. And you'll see in the last few years, China has been making some policies towards revitalizing the west. So Xi'an, which is in the northwest, that's become a very important city. Urumqi as well, which is in Xinjiang, very far northwest.
Many cities, Chengdu, Kunming, any like inner regions.
Even when you talk about Urumqi, which is the capital of Xinjiang, my friend lives very close to the border of Xinjiang and Kyrgyzstan, I think. And for her to get to Urumqi is like a 24-hour bus ride.
Yeah.
That's in the same province, man.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Xinjiang is huge. Yeah.
It's huge. So, even within the same province, the distance is so big. I think that's a really, really interesting line that divides China. And it also really informs the way that people think, the way that the economy grows, and then how the culture permeates into China. Because actually, you look at Chinese movies and songs and stuff like that, you actually don't hear that much stuff about Xibei, right? Maybe you'll hear like the traditional music, but you don't hear about like, I don't know, cool rappers or young singers from there. There's probably not that big an industry over in Xibei for musicians and movies. They probably, if they're talented, they fly over to the east and south and they get established here.
Yeah, that's a long monologue of you. I want to show the statistics to some Russian people who really scared that Chinese people will come and take over Siberia and like part of Russia, and because they think that China is overpopulated and there are no places to live here anymore, and then we'll come and conquer Russia, something like this. You know,
really think that?
Some of them really think that they don't have enough lands. They think like even they don't leave it, they use it for like production or for agriculture, whatever. Well, like a lot of Chinese land, which is much better and useful, like if comparing with Russian North. Most of Russia is also like not populated at all. But because you can't live here, it's like super cold. It's like it's really like north, While most of Chinese territories are okay for human being, and they still have a lot of lands to develop, right? So I think like I'm not sure Dongbei people will move to a Russian part. They prefer China South, at least the China Center. There are a lot. It's interesting that actually a lot of Dongbei people in Hainan.
Yeah, they love it in the south.
Lot. They love
it.
The whole island is like for Dongbei people.
But that's really funny because I actually once saw a poster on the internet that said 哪个东北兄弟没有一套房在海南 which means which person from Dongbei doesn't have their own house in Hainan,
Really
right?
love
Because they love it there because it's so hot, right? And my friend from Dongbei, she was saying like her parents' dream is to like buy a house in Hainan because they just want to get away from the cold. Oh my God, I cannot believe how cold it is there. Like now I finally experienced cold. I am never going to the north in the winter again. Never.
Okay.
Never.
Okay. How much money you need to go to the Dongbei for next project? Huh? I'm actually flying to Qingdao next week, and I checked it's minus. Yeah, again.
Wow.
Qingdao is also kind of cold,
like
and it's like seaside.
Yeah,
Can
sea
you
cold,
imagine
right?
like sea cold,
North Sea, yeah.
and it's minus, and like good. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about backpacking when we were kids, when we were younger. Do you remember the longest you ever spent on a train?
Yeah, about 3 days or 4 days, because my family lived in Tashkent in Uzbekistan. So I actually on the train I went through 2 borders, first like Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, then Kazakhstan Russia. I went there and it actually was interesting. I was like 11 years old. My younger brother was like 8 years old, and we went there without parents, without any adult people.
Oh my God.
For 3 days.
Oh my God.
Because my mom and dad like sent us to Granny, to my hometown for summer holidays. And they just gave us to attendant, probably some pocket, I don't know, humbao, how do you call it, like some money, something like, connections. And then we went like this.
Oh, that's wild. No, I remember that's happened to me when I'd go on an airplane from different countries. My parents would put me on there. But a train for like 3 or 4 days, that's wild. But actually I've got this actually kind of horrible story. Granddad, I think he had an older brother or an uncle who was like, very young. And back then, everyone in China was illiterate. And he got onto a train. And he must have been so young he couldn't remember the name of the city or the town or his name or his family name. And no one had a telephone back then. He just got lost. Oh. And we never found him.
What?
Yeah. Isn't that terrible? And I think that's a symptom, one, of, everyone being illiterate. But also, it's such a big place and there's so many people. It's so easy to get lost.
Oh my God. Probably now you cannot get lost here because Big Brother's watching you everywhere. So it's some good things about this also. Hello, Himalaya. They actually was like checking our latest episode for more than half a day. It was like on the check.
I wonder if they really hate us or they like us. I think they must be, oh God, they've uploaded another podcast. Oh God, so annoying. You have to go check it. I feel we didn't really talk about how big it is though. We talked about the regions. We didn't talk about the numbers.
I don't think we need to. I don't think in this podcast we need to say how many square kilometers China, how much is big. I mean, when we say China is big here, it's like to realize in different fields.
In different ways, right?
In different ways. It's not about territory. I really think China is not that big when you don't go there to the west to get this slow trains. Sure. But here in the south and east and Dongbei, the most developed regions, when you have high-speed trail and when you have Gaosu, high speeds for the car, it's all is so close.
So I try to not fly in China because it's bad for the environment. So I always take the fast trains. I once took a train from Guangzhou to Shanghai. It took me 11 hours. I lost half a day.
Wow.
So that's just an indication of how big China is, right? So that's south, very much south to the midpoint. Shanghai is very much in the middle. And then to go further north, right to Beijing is 5 because they've got a special train. But probably to go up north of Dongbei is probably at least another like 12, 14, 15 hours, even by high-speed train. I've got a friend who's in Guangdong right now. He's from Dongbei. And I'm like, are you going back for Chinese New Year? He's like, no, man, it's too far.
Come on.
Like, no, but it's not just too far. It's also expensive. For him to fly back would cost like a couple of thousand minimum, right? Yeah. And if you follow that logic, I mean, back in pre-coronavirus days, 2,000 RMB, you can get a nice holiday to Thailand and back, plus, like a nice hotel or whatever. So 2,000 is a lot in that perspective.
Yeah, it's about $300. And will be much more expensive actually for Chinese holidays.
Yeah, and during the peak seasons, yeah.
Okay, China is big, and we are small. No,
I mean, China is like way bigger than Europe, right? Even Kazakhstan is bigger than Europe. So I think we're coming from two different perspectives. I'm coming from the UK where, God, I remember driving up to my university would take like 3 hours or like 3.5 hours. And every time we drive up, I'd be like, no, I don't want to go. It's such a long drive. Like, I hated it. And then getting on the train was like 2 hours or something. And I would hate it because I felt like I was just losing a day. And then you come to China, or in your case, Russia, you're like, well, what's a day? Right? Just to go from one place to the other is like, 10 hours or something. I remember on school trips from London, we used to like drive to Belgium. So we'd drive to the ferry, get the ferry for an hour, and then keep driving. And we would have crossed like 3 or 4 countries within a few hours. Honestly, like driving in Europe is like a breeze. You can actually drive from London to Switzerland in about 24 hours, I think.
Yeah, before you had a lot of paths around the world. Like you can go to Hong Kong for a long time on the ship, or to India, or to Australia, but now only one island. Okay.
So, thank you so much for listening. We've really, really enjoyed talking about this topic. Again, my name is Lucien.
My name is Artem.
And please give us your feedback on all the different platforms, especially Instagram. And we also very much look forward to hearing your ideas for what we should be talking about next.
And leave your reviews on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, everywhere. Really, we need this so platforms can push our podcast somehow.
And so we can become the #1 podcast in the
world. About China, at least. I checked statistics. We are doing better. More and more people listening to us.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's me and my mum, and then my mum gets her buddies to listen as well. It's really nice of them. Actually, you know what? My mum didn't even watch my TV show.
No?
Can you imagine? I sent her the YouTube link.
Sorry about it. No one was.
Why does no one like me? I sent her to the YouTube link, and then I was like, hey, Mum, did you watch it the next day? And she was like, yeah, I watched about 15 minutes of it. I'll continue another day. I'm like, Mum, you're locked down in England. You haven't left the house for 8 months. You're not doing anything. How can you not watch your son on TV?
I'm sorry about it. My mom watching my YouTube channel every week, just like when it goes out video. And she reminded me that actually something wrong. You didn't release it for 2 hours. You usually release it on Sunday at 3 o'clock. So where is it? You see. Okay.
Okay, so thank you again so much, and we really look forward to speaking to you next time.
Yeah.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.